This is the Christology Podcast. We're here. Again, we're getting more episodes going.
Yep.
This one was kind of spur of the moment. Well,
we've been talking about it a long time, but decided to do it today.
What had happened was we started to watch the dog series. It's been on my mind a long time. And Rick Hogg, our good friend at warhog.com, Rick Hogg put a video together on Instagram.
We should be able to link it maybe in the notes. We can try.
Yeah, we will on IG. But he hit me up. Well, he put this video together, and I woke up Monday morning, and it was, the 18th anniversary of when I lost Pepper.
Wow.
Yeah, in February 4th. I always get the 4th, 5th.
I thought it was 5th, 6th.
I did too, but Rick got it right, I think, because Lance Cornett died the night before her. So thank you, Rick. But that, I was like, wow. And then we went to watch that little short that night, and it put us both in tears.
Yeah, I couldn't finish it. I'll watch it later, Rick. Sorry. Yeah. Beautiful.
Our boys saw it. How come you couldn't watch it, Laura?
Oh, it choked me up. Like, I remember that. I was there the night after she died and Lance died.
Yeah.
In Iraq.
You were. So and then we're dedicating this episode to a little 14-year-old dachshund named Gizmo. He belongs to a man named Bill, who was in the Ranger Regiment, 2nd Bat, Charlie Company, 3rd Squad, and weapons. I don't think he said what platoon, but I missed the Ranger lingo. He was in Ranger Bat, and he contacted us on Instagram, and he's like, he wasn't a canine, but man, did he help me out. And
not a working dog. He's still a canine.
Right. Yeah, there's so much. But that, and then Steve Wood, our friend that I met through Tom Brown, his podcast, he sent a picture of his dog, Heidi, with his daughter. Of course, I remember the dog's name and not his daughter's name, but I'll get there. And then, so Zero Limits Podcast, who has just thousands of listeners there, a real podcast. We're just kind of getting there. They reached out to us, so they're going to interview us soon.
I love that. Going back to that picture with the little girl and his dog, we weren't going to talk about this, but I'll just throw it out there. We used to adopt our combat assault dogs out to the handlers after they were done working, and they had small children, and the dogs did just fine. I think that Big Army makes, I'm probably going to get in trouble, Big Army makes such a big deal out of adopting working dogs. But, we've had real bite dogs that go home to 2 and 3-year-olds. And you said, even on Target, the dogs, they knew the difference.
Always. Yeah. We never had a kid bit. I mean, I'm sure it's happened, but they probably have a better record than we do of, hurting kids. So how do they know? I mean, it's just incredible. Anyways.
Yeah.
So, and then just our friend Justin Melnick, Kelly Roby, guys out there doing awesome stuff to educate people. And I don't know, we just want to thank them, and all that sort of come together this week, and all that to say that Laura and I'm going to interview Laura about her Douglas.
My Douglas. Yeah, I'd rather be the interviewer than the interviewee. Just.
I thought that too, hon, when I said, why don't I interview you? But this one, wow, as we said, okay, let's do it. We started putting together pictures, and oh boy, we did see something cool. I like to kind of hit on the end and then circle back around. But so the episode, or the name of this episode, is Knowing When, and knowing when to put your dog down with Doug it just hit me 5 minutes ago. It was the same as me knowing when to send Pepper again that second time, knowing that was probably it, but we've done everything else.
Yeah. And I imagine that for the commander of that mission, knowing when to pull you guys out. Everybody was looking for Pepper, the little birds, and all the people trying to find her. And, he had to decide when to bring you guys back. The sun was coming up, and, that everybody, she was,
No.
Everybody's friend.
Yeah. So Laura, we're going to talk about Doug, and he was a very special dog. I'm going to put his little puppy picture up here. You can't see it, but you know the one.
Yeah, we have some better ones. I don't. We always put the same picture of Doug up, but it's really a cute one.
No, this one's new.
Oh no, okay.
It hasn't been up here on podcast yet.
Okay. Yeah. So, and this, just so you know, this podcast isn't going to tell you when to make this decision. This is just our experience. And my experience, I was a vet tech in the Army for 26 years. And so I've worked in stray animal facilities and had to help make those decisions. I was definitely the worker who had to do it. But pets too, I'm old. I've had a lot of dogs that I've had to make the decision for, but Doug was special.
How did he come to be?
Yeah. So
tell us about his creds.
Yeah. Well, he was the unit's first floppy-eared puppy. We had Labradors before him, a few of them, and they just wanted to see if getting a puppy young and raising it in a totally working environment would create, the best working dog ever. And so we got Doug. He was 8 weeks old, and I drove out to I-95 at a gas station, and I got him from some guy that was driving up north. Huh?
In Georgia, right?
He was coming from Georgia and going up north, and I just got this dog out of his dog box, and I felt so bad for him. He was so sweet and scared to death. But so anyway, I brought him back, and he lived with me because we thought about having a puppy in that working dog environment. Anybody who knows working dog kennels, they're loud. There's
what years were these?
2010 is when we got Doug. And so I fostered him. He came home with me, and I was instructed that Doug was a working dog and that I had to be very careful with how I brought him up at home. Like all of his joy needed to come from work, and he really was joyful about it. Like he loved it. He loved work. And so
somebody managed his joy.
Pardon me?
Somebody was in control of his joy.
We thought we were. Yeah. So yeah, he didn't have normal play. Like he would go to work and play all day, and then he would come back to my house and just like crash out. Half the time I didn't know if I had a dog because he was so quiet. He'd just go lay on his bed, and on the days that I didn't have to go to work, I had to find him a ride into work. Like he was way more important than I was, which is fine. I'm okay with that. But yeah, so part of my job with his fostering was to get him out in town and get him used to like the train going through Southern Pines and meeting people and just the social part of it. And I always thought it was funny, like more people knew Doug than knew me, which is fine too. But like, I bet if you walked around downtown Southern Pines, even though it's how many years later, I don't even want to talk about it, they would remember Doug. Like he was.
Yeah, I took him to a men's spiritual retreat once when you and I were just getting together, I believe, and there was like Ray that does floors, and I took Doug along to a men's retreat, because he belongs there because
he's a man.
He'd go to and it's like, is that Doug? I'm like, it is. You know Doug? Yeah, I did the floors at his house. I'm like, yeah.
So he was pretty well known.
Yeah. But he was boring?
Yeah, it was really boring. And maybe that's just because he had so much fun at work. Like, he did the training that all the regular or adult working dogs did. He went on helicopters, and he went on aircraft, and I think they even fast roped with him. Like,
yikes.
He was a big dog, but
zip.
Yeah, everybody I don't want to say everybody loved Doug. The civilians loved Doug, the handlers not so much
Mhm.
because he wasn't a pointy-eared dog, and you know,
Yeah, very different to handle.
yes, yeah,
But that's the point, right? I mean,
yeah,
single
right,
purpose, like just
yeah,
tell us if there's a bomb. Don't
right,
try to bite anything.
yeah, yeah. And he was good at his job. He was really, really good at his job, but yeah. So he was super boring at home, and so then I retired in 2014, and Doug was only 4 years old, and they were going to give him to me because that's kind of what happens when you retire. If you have a dog, they let you have him, and he was so young, and he was very good at his job, but their unit was very kind to his people, and so I wasn't going to take him at first because he was so boring. Like, I was like, why do I want a dog that has no personality whatsoever?
Can you tell us about the retirement ceremony? Like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So we had a retirement ceremony together, and we had a big banner, and it had my picture and a steel pot when I was 18 in basic training, and then it had Doug's little puppy pic. Why does the cat have duct tape on him?
I don't know. He
Okay,
must have been rigging something up.
so all right, so
The boys aren't even here. That's the weird thing.
yeah.
Retirement.
Yep. So we had this big banner, and we rented a bar downtown, and I think we had it catered. I can't remember anymore, but Doug was running around the party, and he had his little Hawaiian shirt on, and people that crashed the party were like, "Oh, Doug, you're retiring!" Like, it was really that bad. It really, really was. But it was a lot of fun. And then remind me, I have a story about that when we talk about Aaron, another
Okay.
series. But yeah, so he was this boring Labrador, and I just was like, I felt bad about him living in the kennels, and that's why I took him.
Yeah.
But
you retired and you went right to work like most people coming out of the military. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's not,
yeah,
how are you?
right.
Or how's your wife and your kids? It's, what are you going to do? So like everybody, you decided what you're going to do.
Yep. So we started a company. That's what everybody does. You
right.
start a company.
Yeah.
And it was called Veterinary Tactical Group, and I think that my ex-partner's still running it. But we taught trauma training to police officers and EMTs, and actually regular vets too, because like point of injury trauma is different than pet trauma, because point of injury, like if they make it to the vet clinic, more than likely they're going to live. But with you guys, if a dog's bleeding out, you were actually taught how to stop the bleeding, and bloat and stuff like that. So we taught the same things we taught our handlers at work. We taught them in the civilian world, and that was amazing because I traveled all over the world. But when I was in the United States, I took Doug. So I think that any of those folks out there that I trained, they would remember Doug.
Yeah. So this is a good time to say why we are talking about this on the Christology podcast.
Yeah.
All things that have been made were made through Christ. Okay. It says in the Gospel of John and many other Hebrews. So we knew it was a good idea. I'm a theologian, we're both retired military, but we do our things now. But Christology, who Jesus is, the study of who Jesus is, there's just nothing literally that can be outside of this discussion. So again, in the Watch the Doug series, we'll get to theologically scriptural. I know it's maybe boring. A lot of people will get back to your story, but it's important to know that why we're talking about this and why we're going to dig deep into some other ones, like you mentioned, Aaron Greider, is because dogs can just cut away all the stuff and get right to like, whoa, the truth of life. And so I just want to bring up one verse here, and then we'll leave that for the other episode. But Ecclesiastes 3:21, who knows if the spirit of the animal rises up like a man or goes down to the earth? Solomon's writing that, saying, who knows? We don't know, which means it may go up with us.
Yeah. I would like to think that. I think God created all these beautiful beings, and why not take care of those too? I don't doubt it at all.
Yeah. So we were on VTG, and Doug was pretty much a pincushion stunt dog, right?
Yep. Stunt dog. Yep. He volunteered for a lot of bandaging and stuff like that, and he was good company, as far as having a dog with you, I guess. But he really, really turned into a interesting character when he got his voice, and that was
I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah. All dogs have like this personality, and you wish they could talk. And so one day Doug just started talking. Thanks to my wonderful husband who helped him with his personality. And dogs know when they're making you laugh or when you're laughing at them. And I think it just encouraged him. He really got goofy, right?
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
Yeah. And that was and we talk about the V word on the show a lot, the vulnerability, but we're doing it because it helps, and people come out and say, hey, thanks. So that's why we're doing it. That's the reward. But
yeah,
that was a survival mechanism for me as a kid, me and my brother, who underwent some really nasty abuse. We had animals. I just remember doing the voice, and we both did it the same way. And we did that to each other, just making jokes with a dog or a cat to get through, what kids shouldn't be getting through. So that's where that came from. So I never brought that out to anybody, Laura, but you were so sweetheart. I want to honor you with this, video. And Doug, you, just God, you helped me, babe. God put you in my life. God put Doug in your life. It's all
and you in my life.
right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the voice, it helped me to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So, gosh, then we went and lived on a catamaran on the ocean.
Yeah, Doug went with us, and he didn't seem to mind. I mean, he was pretty easygoing, and we had to bring the boat up from Florida, and we were out in the Gulf Stream, and it was gorgeous. Totally veering off track here, but we had a really, really beautiful day, and we had another small dog at the time, but neither one of them had gone to the bathroom in 24 hours. So we were starting to get a little bit nervous. And, I brought some dirt along and some grass thinking maybe they'd go, but they didn't. So we're like, okay, well, let's just put them in the ocean, and that will probably, stimulate. We did have life jackets and a tether, but I'm not kidding. Okay, so this is another story for another day, but as soon as we all jumped in to cool off, we got back on the boat, got the dogs back on the boat, and I'm not kidding, we saw a shark go underneath our boat that was bigger than our boat, or as big as our boat. I wish I had a picture of it. It was crazy. But
our 39-foot privileged catamaran,
yeah, it was huge, and I never swam again.
Yeah.
So then we lived on the boat for 2 years, and then he went out with us. He went everywhere. When we would go out, 30 miles off the coast to go fishing, Doug went with us. And he was a great little seaman, I guess, little sea dog.
He was. I mean, he didn't love it at first, but oh gosh, remember that time he had that collar on? You got those LED collars, and it was wintertime, and we were going to jump from the dock.
It was nighttime, and it was winter, and I was inside cooking, and I had the music going, and Dave was usually the nice guy and would take the dog for the walk. And it was that year, 17 or 18, when we got ice and snow in North Carolina. And so you have to do a little jump from the boat to the dock, I don't know,
3 feet.
3 feet. And a little closer than that. But Doug was always able to do it. But this time he slipped, and we had these glow in the dark collars on them, just so we could find him. And when he fell into the water, his collar like snapped off, but Dave didn't know it. So he was laying on the dock trying to reach down and grab him, because if you've never been in a marina, there's no stairs. Like, you don't swim in a marina.
Well, before that though, so he fell in, and I just saw the collar like
Yeah.
cascading down. And this is in January.
It was freezing.
So I'm getting ready to have to jump in because I thought that was on him, and he sank. And then,
Yeah, you were like pounding on the side of the boat, and I couldn't hear you because the music was up.
well, yeah, you're like listening to the Eagles or something. So like, I'm like, I gotta go in, and maybe but I'm definitely going in. And I just hear, and I see this. Remember how he swam?
Yeah.
It's just arms like, but he's under the dock, so I gotta like convince him to like dug his head and get out, and he's just confused.
Yeah, and then he was kind of fat at the time, so trying to get, and like the dock set up 2 feet, a
was a
foot and a half from
yeah.
the water,
Yeah.
so like you have to halfway get in yourself
Yeah.
to try to pick this beast up.
So after that, that's when you invented the dog
Dog lift.
extraction device for us.
Yeah.
We had like an acronym for it, but it was, you sewed up, heavy duty fabric, like 200-pound test to be able to hoist Doug out if it happened again, but it didn't.
Yeah. So where were we going with
Well, we lived on a catamaran. So during this time, we didn't talk about this before, but we're going to talk about your book. Laura wrote a children's book that's just incredible, but you also, your paper that you published.
Oh gosh, yeah. So I published a paper on causes of death in military working dogs during the war, and so that's out there. You can Google it, and it's under Miller, not Nielsen.
Laura Miller. Yep.
And then, but more fun was the book that I wrote with Mandy Casserly and her daughter Naomi Coman. Hope I got her name right. They did the artwork on it, and it was a children's book, and I wrote it for Dave and his daughter, and it just talks about working dogs. We bought them in Belgium, and then we bring them over, and some of the training they went to, and I threw a few little things in there, like from my life, like they said they never hire a girl dog, and they did, and just some fun stuff like that. But it does. It talks about a dog getting injured in the war, getting shot, and his recovery, or her recovery, sorry, and then death of a dog. And when I was writing the book, it was to raise money for the Soft Canine Memorial at the Airborne and Special Operations Museum in Fayetteville. So, big disclaimer here. In the back of the book, it says that a portion of the proceeds, it might even say all of the proceeds, are going to the Soft Canine Memorial. We've since closed that down, and I can't edit the book. So I'm technically not very good with this kind of stuff. So anybody out there on Kindle Publishing that can help me fix that, that would be great. But
yeah, and I just put the book cover up, and then I put the page with the dad and the mom and the kid, how I became a canine commando. And it is a good book. It is.
Yeah, I didn't know who the audience was really, adults or children, and I didn't know if it was too much for kids. So like I've learned since then, now that I work at a preschool, that you have to kind of edit it and flip through some pages. So it's not all appropriate for preschool age. So that's up to you as parents.
Yeah. So Laura, I'm putting up now the 2 pages with our fallen partners. Can you want to talk about that? As you were talking about, the paper and point of injury. That picture's up.
Right. Yeah. So in the book at the time, it has a picture of all of the killed in action dogs. Pepper's on there, even though she was missing.
Missing in action.
Yep. And at the time of the publishing, there were 52 dogs in there, and they're all, there was criteria. They had to be killed in action or missing in action. And
presumed dead, but missing in action.
Right.
It's not like she just left.
Right. Yeah.
Not that
Yeah.
you said that. I need to say it, like that's another episode, but I just had to say it.
Of course. Yeah. And I think I counted at the time. I'm not sure if my number's right, but I'm pretty sure I knew like 23 of those dogs. Not all in our unit and other units, but yeah, it's a lot. And you know, they're working dogs, but you get to know them. And
Yeah, they are. I feel like I should put up a happy picture of you and I right now. So I am that picture of you and I in Maine back
a
in
long time ago.
10 years, about 10 years ago. That's
Yeah.
right. Yep. All right. So your paper and your book, all this kind of led to like something we're kind of dancing around, both of us, because we lost Doug.
May of last year.
Yeah. Very recently, and not to make it about me, it's not, but it hit me as hard as Pepper.
Mm-hmm.
And wow. So
yeah, that surprised me when you said that. But it makes sense, I think. You know,
okay. Laura, I'm gonna put up, we're gonna go through those pictures now. You can do it, babe. I'm gonna start with the one, not this one. Okay. This is him in May. He's got his ball. He liked his tennis ball, didn't he?
Oh yeah, he'd do anything for a tennis ball. Anyway, so he had been struggling for a little while, and I think it was the hardest.
Absolutely.
Like to say, you know, now or next week or 6 months.
And you're a vet tech with 26 years. You've seen it.
Yeah. Yep.
And what would you tell people?
Quality of life. The night before, Doug had been crying. He was lost in the house. And that was it.
Yeah, that
So quality of life. And you know, sometimes we don't see that. I think I mentioned it at a different podcast. How I worked at an emergency clinic too, and there were so many euthanasias over the holidays, and I thought, what a weird thing. Like, why would people do it at Christmas and Thanksgiving? And my you know, non scientific idea was that the kids come home from college and they see the dog and they're like, whoa, mom and dad, what are you doing? It's time. And
wow, interesting.
yeah, and the parents are like, well, you're here, let's do it, you know. And gosh, it was on Thanksgiving and Christmas Day. Like, I bet if somebody did a survey, it would be like a really, really busy time for euthanasia. But yeah, so that was rough.
So now I'm putting up his picture, hun, of just the one with him with Norm behind him.
Yeah.
Where we have goodbye for now, Doug. Died Saturday, May 7th, 23. The best good boy. First flap of your dog in the unit. Our hearts ache. Ecclesiastes 3:21. And, you know, there's some pictures of you and him, but I can't even look at those. Crush me. You didn't want him on that day, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know so many people can relate. Like, it's just and respect for life. You know, I think I touched on that too, that people who choose to like, people actually asked for euthanasia when it wasn't necessary, especially in the military. They were going overseas, they couldn't find anybody to adopt their dog. Obviously we didn't do it, but like that you could even consider that. So
yeah.
And having to assist families with that, I cried with them. You
Mm.
know, it's
Yeah.
human animal bond is huge. It's real.
Yeah, I mean, like, but talking about this is, I think, why Billy felt, that he could reach out to us on Instagram and say, "I lost my
Mm.
wiener dog Gizmo."
Yeah, I hear you.
Like,
Sad.
he tried to revive him. Like, that's when I get to the point where,
Yeah.
'cause we had another dog, Falco, that was killed that we tried to revive, and it's just heart-wrenching. And you have seen all that, hon. You have lived through all that, and still, right? Doug hit you like
Yeah.
a bag full of bricks.
Yeah, the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
It really was.
But what did we used to sing to him? Do you remember the little song we made up?
Yeah.
Who knows if the spirit of the dog rises?
Yeah.
Just silly, but it's from that verse.
Yeah.
It would sort of cheer him up. And
Yeah.
when we were there, and God, when he gave me that look, woo. So, like, I just want to say, the reason I became a Delta Force operator was so that no man could ever tell me I hadn't done anything. There's nothing outside of my realm of manliness. I know that now. I didn't know why I was driven to do that then.
Yeah.
Don't anybody out there ever feel bad about shedding a tear, losing a pet, a cat, a dog, a bird. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's real because it's life, and it's how we relate. God put it there in our lives so that we can relate to the importance of life.
Yeah.
Laura, like you said. Okay, so just, I know you don't want to dwell here, but again, knowing when it was,
Yeah.
when you know, but you don't always know.
Yeah, right. I was devastated and bawling, you know.
Yeah.
Somebody else decide.
Yeah. And we prayed through it.
Yeah.
And you don't want to go too early, and that's a good thing. That's respect.
Yeah.
And we didn't go too early. It was, you knew when he was scared that night.
Yeah.
You didn't want him to be scared. Putting up the picture, it's just his last day, him laying there out in our yard, and me laying with him. Man, oh man. And now I'm gonna go back to his
Happy picture?
Yeah. Well, his Clint Eastwood picture.
Yeah.
Because I love that. And so then, gosh, I'm going to throw this in. This also all came from when I was a guest on Origin K9 with Tom Brown. It was Steve Wood who had watched and asked a question, how do you get through this? And it was like, well, you get through it.
Mm.
You and I, gosh, we had each other, and we had so many resources, and like, we're fine now. You wrote a book. We made the HBO documentary.
Mm.
We were on SEAL team with Justin Melnick, who handles Dita and Pepper. Now he named, so we were consultants on the movie Dog. We've just had all these interactions, which is the process of helping. So,
right. And not that you need all of that. I mean, that's just
We got
was
lucky.
our process.
We got lucky.
Yeah. But like, acknowledging and recognizing that you're in pain.
Yeah.
And not trying to ignore it.
Yeah. And this will be another episode, but there are some just like criminally wrong instances in the military. There's just some turds in charge of men and dogs that do things that are just wrong. That's another episode. But that just doesn't need to be happening.
And not just for the audience, it's not like euthanizing or killing a dog. It's more the personal toll that some of the supervisors, the things that they did to the dog handlers, during these horrible events. And yeah, I think we should talk about those another time. But
Yeah, and we will, but it's part of this because the handlers have to get through this.
yeah,
The pet owners,
mhm,
the elderly folks, the
Mm.
young kids who don't get to talk about it, man.
yeah,
This is important stuff. This is big stuff.
yeah. The It took a while. I want to say I was probably there for um, maybe 4 years, and the unit decided that there would be a mandatory meeting with the shrink or the chaplain or both when you lost a dog. It wasn't
Yeah.
optional because, tough guys, they're so tough, but they're not when it comes to that
Yeah.
or so many things, I guess.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really good thing to make it mandatory, because then it's not you saying I need help. It's like I had to go.
Yeah, that's a
But
step. It should be better than more than that, but that's a
right.
step.
I think it led to a lot of conversations that they might not have had.
Yep. Oh, for sure. It's something versus,
Yeah. Get back
just
to work.
craziness of, or taking the dog, separating the dog and the handler because one of them's hurt. Like that should not be happening.
Yeah, that was what happened with oh my gosh, Mika and
Yeah,
John.
John Dixon, yeah, and Mika.
Yeah, if you haven't seen War Dogs, The Soldier's Best Friend, then you should really watch that and have your tissues ready. It's really emotional.
Doug was 14, right, babe?
Yeah. Yeah. He had a nice long life. That's a
Yeah.
long time for a Labrador. So,
And then man, like I'm gonna be vulnerable. That's our thing, right?
yeah.
The V word 2024, that's our motto. So the voice, like I just all day, I mean, throughout the day I'm making dog voices. And I have different ones.
I know.
I
We
have
got a
female one.
we got a female dog.
Douglas.
Yeah.
I get it.
And Dave was going to use the same voice for her,
Yeah.
and I said, "Nope, she needs a different voice." And so that was her voice.
And I'm like, it can't be done.
Yeah. And so that's Gina. Her
Yeah.
name was Gina Marie. And she was just a stray. We called her Swamp Dog. There's actually a breed in North Carolina, brown dog.
Carolina brown dog.
Yeah.
Who?
So there was Gina.
And now we have Henry, our friend Brian, who passed away in October. We have Henry and Samson. He has a voice.
Yeah.
We'll do that later. But
Yeah.
I said all that to say the orbit thing, like after a couple weeks of Doug being gone and, the sadness, just a way I can relate. Netanyahu, Yanni Netanyahu, who was killed in Entebbe, the raid on Entebbe. He talked about just he said, and thus talking about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, it just, on and on and on. Thus you have this sadness, the infinite sadness of young men destined for endless war. That kind of hits on the innocence.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what is going on with our pets, our work companions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what. Right. I forgot about that. We talked about that. The difference was, losing Doug. He was so innocent and just so he was vulnerable, and versus a working dog that they're going to work and that is their job. And I don't even want to get into the debate of they don't know they're going into harm's way, blah blah blah. Just too much of that. But like there is a difference losing a dog. I mean, it hurts no matter what, but I don't know. I kind of think of like children and maybe children and grown or adults.
Not to compare, like,
of course not losing a child, but like the mentality of
the
innocence of a child.
Losing a child is, that's beyond.
I was thinking more. Maybe I didn't make that clear, hun, but like
I know what
Doug.
you meant. I know what you meant. I'm just saying it to leave no doubt that we are not even comparing in any way.
No.
This is a totally different thing,
Yeah.
but a thing nonetheless where God shows us, innocence and loss
Hmm.
and pain, but then redemption. And your book, and I mean, I cry every time I read it. It's, cartoon drawings, but they're really good drawings.
Yeah.
And your writing is just, you were meant to do that book.
Yeah. And that's it. Every year.
And this podcast.
We get our W-2s at the end of the year.
Oh, jeez.
Can I share that?
Sure.
And so it's the big joke or competition about who earned more. Dave on his residuals from SEAL. And I think I had $57 this year and he had 145. So
Yeah.
Hollywood pays better, clearly.
Yeah. I think you beat me last,
Couple years before that.
yeah, when your book was hot.
I made $100.
When you sold
20.
Yeah, at the Soft Piano Memorial. But that's the thing. We are doing this Christology podcast to get to truth, what is good, what is pure, because that's, where God, the qualities that he gives us, we're created in his image. We are imagers of him. And that's what we're getting at with all this. You can see that picture of Pepper was charcoal drawn by one of the illustrators of Laura's book.
Yeah, Mandy drew that.
Yep. And there's also the same artist.
Oh, yeah.
You can see Doug over there.
She had Doug in a tuxedo. That was a Christmas present one year.
Yeah, I said, hey, do you think you could do him in a tux? She's like, I think so. Send a picture. So there he is in a tuxedo. And like 1 out of 100 people notices. Almost everybody looks at that and doesn't notice he's in a tux.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm putting his puppy picture up. That's what I keep trying to get to. And thank you, sweetheart, for being vulnerable, for being vulnerable. I keep trying to talk about the orbit. So after a few weeks, something just came to me. I was like, everything's going to be okay. Like I did Doug's voice, but and you and Cam looked at, Cam was still here, our daughter. She's 18. She's like, was that Doug? And I said, yes, it was. I'm like he's orbiting, going to be with God. Or so. I was just being kind of silly, but it was the right time.
Yeah.
Knowing when.
Yeah.
Broke
the sadness.
Yeah.
Lighten things up.
Yeah. And yeah. So that's what we want to do, is talk about it. War Story. That was also the name of the boat that we lived on.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. Doug was funny. One last Doug story.
Oh, please.
Yeah. He his voice, he would always talk about being on call and that pager going off. And Doug never deployed. He was gonna go and then he didn't, but his war story is the pager, so
it's a serious story. You hear that pager go off, you're gone. That's it. Yeah, we joked around about that. Sweetheart, anything else you want to talk about?
No, thank you.
Again, yeah.
Don't make fun of me.
Don't make fun of me. I'm the idiot doing voices. Let's pray. Lord God, we come before you boldly and humbly and with humor and earnest hearts. We thank you that we're able to have animals like Doug and Pepper and Gizmo and Heidi and Tupac and Dita, and I can go on and on and on and on. But God, we're so thankful for these awesome animals. We thank you for them, for Doug, and for the stories that we get to tell, Lord. We thank you. Thank you for this podcast. We pray for everybody out there with animals, that they can see what you got programmed in there for them and us to see, Lord. Love, the way, the truth, the life is Jesus. But all things were made through him. So we thank you that you made all things. In your name, Lord. Amen.
Amen.